Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Yesterday's congressional hearing, it was like watching the Food Channel, grilling with Tony Hayward. BP's top executive told Congress he's devastated about the oil spill, but that didn't satisfy lawmakers on Capitol Hill.
And as congressmen were looking for answers, former oil rig workers in the Gulf Coast were looking for jobs. Jennifer Wishon has that story.
It's the 60th day of the disaster in the Gulf. 52 miles of shoreline are affected, and as many as 2.5 million gallons of oil will gush out of BP's breached well today. Hundreds of miles away on Capitol Hill, the company's CEO, Tony Hayward, told lawmakers he's deeply sorry for the accident, but wasn't willing to admit blame.
There is no evidence of reckless behavior.
Before lawmakers had the chance to grill him, an oil-covered protester interrupted.
You need to be charged with a crime. You need to go to jail.
Hayward received a tongue lashing from both sides of the aisle.
I feel physically sick when I see the clips of the oil gushing in the Gulf.
I think the buck stops on your desk.
BP's chief executive didn't offer details and wasn't willing to speculate, saying he wasn't the one on the ground making decisions.
I can't answer that question.
Well, there is.
I'm not a cement engineer, I'm afraid.
But you're the CEO of the company.
With respect, sir, we drill hundreds of wells a year all around the world.
Yeah, I know. That's what's scaring me right now.
Republican Congressman Joe Barton created his own firestorm by apologizing to Hayward. Barton said he was sorry for what he called a White House shakedown to create a $20 billion compensation fund for victims of the spill. That outraged the administration, Democrats and Republicans. Barton later apologized for his apology. As tempers flared on Capitol Hill, Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal expressed some outrage too after bureaucratic paperwork kept 8 oil cleaning barges from doing crucial cleanup work for an entire day and night.
They literally watched that oil instead of being able to pick it up. They had the equipment to pick it up, and they weren't allowed to do so.
As Jindal and others wade through the bureaucratic muck, thousands of oil rig workers are hunting for jobs, cleaning up the spill. They've been temporarily laid off after President Obama's 6-month moratorium on deepwater drilling. The oil industry provides some of the highest-paying jobs in the Gulf region, and oil rig workers say the shutdown will only compound grief along the Gulf. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News.
Well, the grief is being compounded. What we saw yesterday was an exercise in democracy. Our representatives in Congress channeling the national anger over this, and there's a lot of anger. And one of the casualties, I think, is going to be this administration because right now everyone seems to be questioning their competency, not just the competency of BP and the number and the record of accidents they've had over the years, but then the competency of the federal regulators who approved every one of the moves on this rig, and now the competency of the administration. And why hasn't this thing been shut down? Why hasn't the Navy been brought in? Why aren't we down in there with submarines trying to cap this? If we can rescue submariners in a down sub, why can't we go down there and cap this thing off? So we're a lot of different questions and a lot of different casualties now, and the latest is all the oil workers in the Gulf, and those rigs are all being moved now as we speak, and they're going to other parts of the world to drill for oil because you can't just let them sit idle. The big beneficiary looks like Brazil. Petrobras and the Tupi oil field off the coast of Brazil, that's where those rigs are going. You know who one of the biggest investors in Petrobras? George Soros. Wendy Griffiths has the rest of our top stories from the CBN Newsroom. Wendy?
Gordon, a new controversial contraceptive pill is one step closer to being approved in the U.S. An FDA panel on Thursday unanimously ruled that the pill appears safe. It's called Ella-1. The one-pill treatment is supposed to prevent pregnancy up to 5 days after unprotected sex. Supporters call it emergency contraception, but critics say it's a thinly veiled attempt to get abortion over the counter.
This drug operates in the same way that RU486 operates, and that's the abortion drug. It changes the lining of the uterus so that an embryo can't implant, or if an embryo is implanted, can't survive. So it really should be labeled an abortion drug, but the FDA may approve it to make it as easily available as the morning after pill.
The FDA is scheduled to make a final decision by July. Meanwhile, a new report shows Planned Parenthood and other abortion providers have received almost $1 billion from U.S. taxpayers. The money was given to 6 abortion groups over the past 7 years. Pro-life groups say abortion providers use that money to convince more women to have abortions. Well, 2 people are dead and dozens injured after a series of tornadoes ripped across Minnesota Thursday. The twister in southern Minnesota turned the late afternoon sky to black. Look at that. At times, it was big as a half a mile wide. Some of the hardest hit areas were in the northwest part of the state. An elderly woman was killed when a tornado destroyed her home, and a man died when a twister hit a gas station. The French Riviera is cleaning up from its worst flooding in nearly 200 years. The flash floods killed at least 25 people. Major storms brought 6 months worth of rain to the region in just 2 weeks' time. The rain turned roads into rivers and left hundreds of people stranded on rooftops. Many had to be rescued by helicopter. Most of those who died were trapped in cars and swept away. New thunderstorms are in the forecast and threaten to slow cleanup efforts. Israel is offering an olive branch to the Palestinians in the face of growing international pressure. The White House says Israel's decision to ease the flow of goods into the Gaza Strip is, quote, a step in the right direction. From media reports, though, you might think little humanitarian aid has been getting into Gaza. But as Chris Mitchell shows us, that's not the case.
It's called the Kerem Shalom Crossing, the place where Hamas-controlled Gaza receives most of its daily supplies.
An average of more than 100 trucks pass daily through the Kerem Shalom Crossing. Since the beginning of 2010, more than 260,000 tons of humanitarian aid have passed through this crossing from Israel into the Gaza Strip.
Captain Amitai Cohen works with the Gaza Coordination, Liaison and Administration, or CLA. They oversee the transfer of goods into Gaza.
Gaza CLA is giving a professional response for each request given by the Palestinian civilian committee regarding anything they want, basically. But those responses are based on the security measure that we need to take.
Those security measures mean Israel is trying to provide the civilians of Gaza with their basic needs, but also trying to restrict Hamas's ability to wage war. To do that, Israel keeps out dual-use goods from Gaza. These are goods like chemicals, which have civilian but also potential military uses, such as making explosives. For years, Hamas has built and fired thousands of rockets into Israeli communities and terrorized Israeli civilians. It's also pledged to destroy the Jewish state and allied itself with Iran in order to establish an Islamic empire throughout the Middle East. Despite these threats to its existence, Israel continues to provide for the people of Gaza. In the past 18 months, nearly a ton of supplies for every man, woman, and child has been delivered into Gaza. Israel also supplies fuel, more than 4 million gallons so far this year for Gaza's power plants. Many feel the volume of goods passing through the Kerem Shalom crossing undermines the claims by Hamas that it's facing a humanitarian crisis. In the meantime, goods will continue to pour into Gaza. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, the Kerem Shalom crossing.
Gordon, do you think Israel should be lowering its level of tolerance at this point?
Well, as that report just showed, and that's a report you haven't seen elsewhere, Israel does allow humanitarian goods to go into Gaza. I think the big mistake here is trying to intercept this flotilla. The senior leadership should have realized this was all for the PR purposes. You're going to show Israeli commandos landing on the ship and trying to disrupt humanitarian aid, a flotilla coming in of these cobbled together ships trying to bring desperately needed aid to Gaza. And they fell right into the trap and are now on the blunt end of international criticism and isolation, and they've got to figure a way out of it. The reality was humanitarian aid getting to Gaza? Yes. Was it coming through normal things like a road? Yes. Did the flotilla even need to exist? No. But that's not getting played, and that's not out there. And so Israel's got to bend over backwards at this point in time to redeem its international reputation.
But what would they do with regard to that? I mean, you can't just let flotillas come in that could be potentially loaded with arms. What's your option?
Well, at some point, I would assume they had intelligence. They certainly have amazed the world at their ability to get information. And why didn't they have intelligence at the dock when the ships are being loaded, or come to some kind of conclusion what was really going on here? It looked like the publicity engine for this flotilla was in full force. So that would seem to indicate you're not going to find a bunch of rockets on the flotilla. Right. So at the same time, we've got to recognize 3,000 rockets have been fired from Gaza into neighborhoods. And if you can imagine that, just imagine, say Toronto wanted to fire 3,000 rockets into Buffalo. What would America do? We wouldn't tolerate it very long.
Only one, right? Yeah, unbelievable. Well, coming up, scientific evidence that makes the case for intelligent design. See how the digital code in DNA debunks Darwin. That's next.
I'm often asked the question, is investing in gold right for me? In fact, many people think that owning gold is only for the wealthy. But you can own gold with a minimal investment. It's easy to own gold. At Goldline, our clients invest in physical gold, not gold stocks or gold funds. Call Goldline and talk with an account executive who can answer your questions and discuss the available gold products, like our popular European coins or Proof American coins. Your gold is then shipped directly to you, or we will arrange storage for you. Goldline has been helping investors acquire precious metals since 1960, and we work with new clients every day who have decided that it's time to invest in gold. Isn't it time that you consider gold? I invite you to join the thousands of hardworking, satisfied clients who have chosen Goldline to help diversify by investing in gold. Call Goldline now and receive a free investor's kit and the American Advisor newsletter. Our account executives are here 6 days a week to serve you. Give us a call today.
Next week, you've heard of cutting.
I like the way it felt.
Now meet a man who took it to the next step.
I got this bright idea to grab a jigsaw and cut off one of my fingers.
See how far he went.
I believe at first I might have tried to hide it, but how can you hide stumbling around or falling on the floor?
Monday on the 700 Club. Well, some scientists are now saying it takes more faith to believe in evolution than it does to believe in a creator. They say new discoveries inside DNA are the latest evidence of an intelligent design behind all creation. John Jessup explains.
Darwin's theory of evolution rests on the idea that the incredibly complex web of life today all evolved from simple chemicals and cells. No creator was necessary, just chance and the powers of the fittest forms of life to survive and adapt. But Darwin couldn't see into cells and DNA like scientists of the modern age. He couldn't know these building blocks of life work because of intricate little machines in each cell, so intricate there's no chance they could simply evolve. Darwin couldn't know that DNA functions, life itself functions, because of incredibly complex code, way beyond what even the most brilliant computer programmers have devised. Secular scientists often mock the simple faith of those who believe in an unseen God. But statisticians say the odds are impossible this incredibly intricate, elegant code could ever just evolve. And thus it takes much more faith to believe in such chance than it does to believe an intelligent designer is behind this code at the core of all life. Science philosopher Stephen Meyer, in his book Signature in the Cell, lays out the evidence for such intelligent design, and he refutes the arguments that the theory of intelligent design is just religion and not true science. It's a battle at the very origin and meaning of life that the secular media rarely allow to break out into the open. John Jessup, CBN News.
Well, Stephen Meyer joins us now. He's the director of the Center for Science and Culture at the Discovery Institute in Seattle, Washington. Stephen, it's great to have you here.
It's nice to be with you,
It's a real
Gordon.
privilege. Let's take that question that was in the piece just head on. What do you say to people that say, well, intelligent design is just religion in another form?
Well, the theory is based on scientific discoveries such as the fine-tuning of the laws of physics and chemistry, the discovery of the intricate nanotechnology, the little miniature machines that have been discovered in cells, rotary engines, sliding clamps, information processing systems. And for me, the most compelling evidence of design is the evidence of design that you find in the digital code that's embedded in the DNA molecule, a 4-character digital code that directs the construction of all the machinery that the cell needs to stay alive. So it's I think, a new day in science. It's an evidence-based theory, not a theory based on religious authority. It may have religious implications, maybe even friendly to religious belief. I think it is myself, but it's based on scientific evidence and even a standard method of scientific reasoning.
Well, let's just get your background so we kind of lay some groundwork here. You have a background in physics, and then you have a doctorate from Cambridge.
Right. I actually started in the field of geophysics. And my first job was with an oil company. My Texan bosses told me my job was to look for oil out in the Gulf. Now they've got a lot of oil out in the Gulf.
They found a lot of oil out there, and now they don't want to find it.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's take a look at the critics. And one of the criticisms I hear of intelligent design is it's all trying to get us to think of creation as the Earth is 6,000 years old, the dinosaurs and mastodons all roam together. Is that part of this or no?
No, the theory of intelligent design is really not about the age of the Earth. It's about the ability to detect the effects of intelligence, to detect an intelligent cause and the effects they leave behind. Let me give a simple example. If you go to the Dakotas and you see the faces in Mount Rushmore, the president's faces, you'll immediately recognize that this wasn't something that was produced by wind and erosion or some purely natural forces. Instead, there was a sculptor or maybe many sculptors involved. Now, inside cells, we don't have little faces, but we have other indicators of intelligence. We have these little miniature machines we were talking about, and most importantly, we have the digital code that's stored in the DNA molecule. The key discovery came in 1957, 4 years after Watson and Crick discovered the beautiful double helical shape of the DNA molecule. Francis Crick had an insight. It was called the sequence hypothesis, when he realized that there are 4 chemicals that run down the spine of the DNA molecule, and they function just like alphabetic characters in a written language or digital characters, zeros and ones in a section of machine code. In fact, Bill Gates has said that DNA is like a software program, only much more complex than any we've ever created. And that's highly suggestive because we know from experience that software programs always come from programmers, and that information generally, in whatever form we find it, whether we're talking about a hieroglyphic inscription or a headline in a newspaper, a paragraph in a book, or information embedded in a radio signal, whenever we find information and we trace it back to its source, we always come to an intelligent mind, to not an undirected immaterial process. It's always intelligence that produces information.
What do you do with the critique that, I think we've all sort of heard this one, that if you take a chimpanzee and a typewriter and give him an infinite amount of time, at some point he's going to come out with a Shakespeare play?
Well, that's the rub. We don't have an infinite amount of time. Except the standard age for the origin of the universe, grant 13, 14 billion years, the complexity of a single protein, which is produced by the information on a strand of DNA. So the amount of information required is so improbable, it's so complex, that if every event, and this is a calculation I make in the book, if every event from the origin of the universe till now had been devoted to searching for one of the possible ways of arranging all of the 4 characters in the DNA molecule or the corresponding amino acids and proteins, you wouldn't have enough time to search but a tiny fraction of all of the possible ways of arranging things. Think of the Scrabble letters on a table. You've got to imagine a huge heap of Scrabble letters, and you've got to find a sentence of that length by chance as you look through there. There's so many possible ways of arranging them. It's like looking for a needle in a great big haystack the size of the universe and only having a tiny, tiny amount of time to search.
Your book goes into the statistical analysis and give us an idea of the time frame involved, the numbers involved in terms of statistical probability that this could arise by accident.
Well, I show that, again, if every event, and an event here is defined as just an interaction of elementary particles. You know, every event that had taken place since the Big Bang had been devoted to searching, you know, in a random trial and error way for a single functional gene or protein. There wouldn't be enough time to search but one part out of a trillion possibilities. So the chance hypothesis has really been rejected by leading origin of life scientists. It's just not credible. That's not where the action is. Even people who don't accept design don't think chance is credible. They're looking for other undirected naturalistic processes to try to explain the origin of information. But as I show in the book, those other approaches have also failed. And yet we know of a cause which is capable of producing information, and that's intelligence. In fact, that's the only known cause of which we know, and therefore that's why I argue that it's the best explanation. In fact, just an interesting irony in this is that I actually, in the book, developed the case for intelligent design using Darwin's own method of scientific reasoning. He had a key principle of reasoning, which is that if you're trying to explain something in the remote past, you should invoke a cause or causes which are known to produce the effect you're trying to explain. What are we trying to explain? Information. What do we know from our uniform experience about what produces information? Only one kind of cause, and that's intelligence. So the presence of information in DNA is a decisive indicator of prior intelligent activity. Information points back to intelligence.
And the fact that this information changes and can change rapidly indicates that there is even active interference. Even Darwin noted the shale deposits in Wales and the Cambrian explosion, that there is a huge explosion of diversity happening within species in a very short geological time.
Well, there's two senses of change here. One is the kind of things that we observe, which are mutations, but those types of changes tend to degrade the information, and they don't seem to be an explanation for where it came from in the first place as a result. The other kind of change is the change you see in the history of life when you see these sudden infusions of new biological form, and we now know, just like in the computer world, if you want to give your computer a new function, you have to provide new code. If you have a new organism that performs new kinds of biological functions, you also need code, and that's the big question. Where did all that information come from in the Cambrian explosion, for example, or in these other huge events in the history of life where you have a huge infusion of new forms of life and therefore new information? Where did it come from? The only known cause of information is, again, intelligence.
Now that we're applying our intelligence to DNA
yes,
and are literally changing the code, we just had this huge breakthrough where an assembled piece of DNA was put into a cell and it replicated. What are the implications for that?
I'm glad you asked that. There's a lot of confusion about this recent news story about Craig Venter's work. It's a brilliant technological achievement, but it is not producing, it was not the achievement that it was touted as achieving. It's not artificial life. What he did was he took a piece of DNA, he copied it, and then put the same, DNA contains information, he put the same information strand back into a cell, and the cell was able to read it. It'd be like if you wanted to have a copy of a file on my desktop. I made a file for you, we popped it in your computer, and then you said, look, my computer can read it. I've created a computer. All the important information processing systems and all the other cellular processes were present in that pre-existing bacterium. All that was done was added a gene with some information, and it was put into the system. It was an artificially copied gene, but it was put into a pre-existing life form. So
he rearranged it.
Well, essentially, he took a component and copied it, and then put it back into an existing organism.
Do you see a time where we could literally design organisms?
I don't. I think we really don't understand what life is. DNA is an unbelievably complex molecule. It's full of code, and that is a fascinating thing. But DNA alone does not make an organism. We have to have all the information processing system that is provided by proteins. We have to have the cell membrane, and it's a functionally integrated system. Each one of these systems depends on the other in a tightly integrated way that engineers would understand. So we really don't have a sense of what would be required to design a whole organism. We know there's a lot of the necessary parts, but getting them all to fit together in the way that they do in an actual organism, it's a very difficult thing to conceive.
So we're back to, which came first, the chicken or the egg. Without a fully formed system, you don't have either one.
Well, right. And one of the on my website, there's an animation that I think your viewers might enjoy. It shows exactly how the digital code in DNA directs the construction of the protein machines and protein parts that the cell needs to stay alive. It's a fascinating process. And some parts of it are very mechanical. It's very much like what goes on at Boeing or Ford, where engineers will design some parts that they want to build. They'll literally codify that design in digital code. It will be sent down a wire, translated into a machine code, and then that information will be used to direct, if you're trying to build an airplane wing, for example, exactly where the robotic arm places the rivets or something. So we have systems that we've now designed where we use digital information to construct mechanical parts. That's what's going on inside the cell. And it's an awesome system. And I've got a little piece of animation on my website that would, I think, bring that to life where, one picture's worth 1,000 words type of thing.
Well, what do you say to evolutionists that claim that whole appearance of design, either the sort of the assembly line construction of the processes within a cell, or ecosystems that depend, one species is necessarily dependent on another, or even the process of chicken and egg, that all of that appearance of design is mere illusion?
Well, that's been the standard Darwinian argument since 1859. But what many people don't realize is that Darwin never addressed the question of the origin of the first life. And in the 150 years since then, scientists have been unsuccessful in explaining the origin of the code and the origin of this chicken and egg relationship that you correctly referred to. DNA encodes for proteins, but proteins are necessary to read the information on DNA, and it's hard to imagine one without the other. And in my book, I look at the different attempts that people have made to try to explain that intricate complexity. The Darwinian idea was that things look designed, but they're not really designed because there's an undirected process, namely natural selection acting on random mutations that can mimic the powers of a designing intelligence. But that explanation is not adequate to explain the origin of the first life for the simple reason that natural selection isn't even a factor until you have life. And I think natural selection also fails to explain some of the higher orders of form and complexity we see in higher animals, not just the first cells. So I think that explanation of apparent design only works if you've got a mechanism that's sufficient to produce all the appearance of design without any guiding hand involved. But I don't think that's the case scientifically anymore. I think what we're looking at is evidence of real design. These designer substitute mechanisms have failed to explain the origin of the information you need to build the first life, and also the higher orders of form that arise in the history of life.
Well, Stephen and I can talk for a long time, but I've been told I got to wrap. So, Signature in the Cell, it's available. It's one of the top-selling science books in the country today, and I encourage you to get a copy. Get informed. It's available in bookstores, and if you want to go to Stephen's animation, all you have to do is log on to cbn.com, and we'll direct you right over there. Terry, over to you.
Well, up next, an unforgettable day for dads and kids.
At this age, being here, you got to meet Tony Dungy, meeting all type of people, and I mean, it's something he would never forget.
The awesomest thing I've ever done in my life.
NFL legend Tony Dungy shows fathers how to be all-pro dads after this.
Still ahead. After 28 years, a father and his son reunite.
I almost did a double take when he said Roy Milton.
Inside a prison cell.
I just wanted to touch him, and see if he was real.
If you're looking at a home security system, or even if you already have one, ADT can give you so much more, like our new keychain remote. Now you can easily arm and disarm your system with the touch of a button, even turn on your lights. You can also count on fast alarm response from our advanced network of monitoring centers, plus great local service, ADT's exclusive theft protection guarantee, and a money-back guarantee if you're not completely satisfied. And you can get all this and more for as little as $1 a day. A single ADT system can help protect your home from burglary, fire, and carbon monoxide. When an alarm is received, ADT can respond quickly, calling local authorities for help. You can even add new technology like Safe Watch Video View. Now you can know what's happening in your home by actually seeing it on your cell phone, computer, or TV. Even if you already have a security system, it's easy to add ADT monitoring. Call now and save over $250 when you buy ADT's family package.
It's peace of mind that can also save your life.
ADT, always there.
Ow! Can you read my number? Attention those on Medicare with diabetes. You may be eligible for an upgraded meter.
I am tired of stabbing my fingertips to test my blood glucose. There has got to be a better way.
If you're on Medicare with diabetes, then you need to know there's a new method for checking your blood glucose. You don't need to stab your fingertips anymore. This new Embrace meter is easier to use and nearly painless. And the best news is that Diabetes Care Club will send you one of these new meters.
This new method hurts less, and I don't have to stab my fingertips anymore.
Not only can I see my number, I can hear it too.
Your blood glucose reading is 89.
There's my number.
Find out why nearly 250,000 patients have joined Diabetes Care Club.
I'm glad I did.
Shipping is free, and so is the call.
Call Diabetes Care Club at 1-800-664-9966.
I'm glad I did.
CBN TV on CBN.com. All the video you love in one easy-to-use location.
Tony Dungy is regarded as one of the most successful coaches in the NFL. He led the Indianapolis Colts to victory in Super Bowl 41. He also set the record for most consecutive playoff appearances by a head coach. Now that Dungy has retired, he's not coaching players anymore, but he is coaching dads.
For more than a decade, former NFL head coach Tony Dungy has been more than an inspiration to the game of football. As one of the most successful coaches in the game, he's inspired men to be the best they can be as husbands and fathers. But during his NFL career, even with all of the success, he and an assistant coach realized something was still missing.
I was coaching with the Buccaneers, and Clyde Christensen and I, he was a receiver coach with us. We used to walk after practice and just talk about our families and what's going on and how we didn't have as much time as dads to be around as much as our fathers were around, and how we could correct that, how we could do a better job. And actually, Clyde got in touch with Mark Merrill, the president of Family First, and he said, I think this guy can help us.
That's when they came up with All Pro Dad, a division of the nonprofit organization Family First, which focuses on building relationships between fathers and their kids.
Really, 1998 was the first event we had. We were probably getting 50 people a day at practice. And we said, hey, dads, bring your kids out, watch a Saturday practice. We ended up getting about 3,500 people come out. And we said, you know, this might be a good idea, the way men connect with football. If we can help them get that same energy with parenting, we're going to have a good thing. Let's call it All Pro Dad and get it started.
Over the last 10 years, All Pro Dad has brought thousands of fathers and kids together with its annual event, the All Pro Dad Father and Kids Experience.
The neat thing is you sign up for it, dads can bring any number of kids, $15 per family, and they come out and they get to run on the field where their heroes run. And the kids will get to enjoy this. We'll have 6 different stations, a running back station, linebacker station, wide receiver station, and they'll learn a football skill. But at the end of a short period of time, then they'll get a life lesson at that particular station. So they get 6 football skills, but more importantly, they get 6 life lessons. And they get to spend 3 hours with their dad. And more kids come out thinking, boy, I'm going to get to be on the Buccaneers field. But at the end of the day, it's, I spent 3 hours with my dad and I had a lot of fun.
What made you want to bring your son out to this event?
Trying to have more father and son activities for us to do, and this seemed like a great opportunity. You know, I see some of my qualities instilled in him. He's growing up as a good young man, so it means a lot.
You know, this is something he will never forget, you know. At this age, being here, you got to meet Tony Dungy, meeting all type of people, and I mean, it's something he would never forget. It's great to be here right now.
You're out here hanging out with Tony Dungy. Is that cool?
The awesomest thing I've ever done in my life.
What dance did you do? Show him your dance.
Show
What
me
dance
skip.
you got,
Show
man?
your
What dance
dance.
did you do? That's it. That's the celebration. All right, my man.
But being an All-Pro dad is more than just a yearly event. It extends far beyond the football field and into the community. Their website provides tools to help fathers build relationships at home with their kids every day.
This is really special for me because we get so many parents out here, many for the first time, where they, say, it's been years since I've spent 3 hours with my kids just having fun. And getting them to interact and understand how important that is, see the smiles on the kids' faces, and that's what we need in our country. We've got to get our men more engaged being parents. It's going to head off a lot of the problems that we're seeing now.
A wonderful idea. Well, the next All-Pro Dad event is going to take place on August the 28th. It'll be in Nashville with the Tennessee Titans. So for more information on this and other upcoming All-Pro Dad events, if you log on to our website at cbn.com, you'll find more info there. And speaking of cbn.com, we have 3 winners in our Father's Day contest. So we want to offer congratulations to Laura Emerson of Biloxi, Mississippi, Troy Adams of Valdosta, Georgia, and Kim Papa of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The South rises again this Father's Day. And thanks to all of the rest of you who participated in our contest as well. That's great. Enjoy your dads this weekend.
Our next story is a wonderful story about a father and son. Roy Smith was 3 years old. First part of the story is bad. His dad abandoned him. And for the next 28 years, Roy never saw him or heard from him until the day they ended up in the same prison cell.
I felt like I was robbed, like other people have fathers. Why don't I have my father in my life? That would pretty much sum it up for me.
Roy Smith grew up never knowing his father, an open wound even after he became a minister.
There were times I was very uncomfortable, especially as a pastor. When it's Father's Day and you're encouraging congregations to spend time with their father, and there's like something missing.
But a business deal gone wrong was about to connect Roy with his long-lost father. The church board decided to purchase their own building. They didn't qualify for a loan until Roy was introduced to a broker who said he could get them a loan.
He said whatever building we found, he would definitely be able to help us secure a loan through financial institutions that primarily supported churches.
Roy and his congregation were ecstatic as they purchased a church building. But one day, Roy received a phone call from the FBI. He was charged with committing fraud. His attorney took a close look at the loan paperwork and discovered the broker had inflated the church's assets to get the loan. Roy had not caught the lie.
I was left holding a bag. My signature was on loan applications.
Roy was sentenced to 15 months in prison.
I said to myself, God, you can't be letting this happen. When I arrived at the prison, I sat down with one of the counselors who was going over orientation with me. He begins to tell me my room assignment, and when he mentioned the name of a person in the room, I almost did a double take when he said Roy Melton, because Roy Melton, that's my dad.
When he was finally escorted to his cell, Roy realized that his cellmate was indeed his father, who was in prison for dealing drugs. It had been over 20 years since they had seen each other.
On the inside, I felt like a 6-year-old little boy. I think I think in my mind, I just wanted to touch him. I was scared. I didn't know if I hated him, if I loved him. I didn't know if he hated me. I had repressed all of that stuff for so long. I wasn't 100% sure this was a good thing.
One day, he noticed his father's newspaper clippings. They were all of Roy.
He knew stuff about me when I was in the newspaper for high school accomplishments and when I got married, and even the case on why I was sent to prison. So he was aware of what was going on with me. And all of these years, I felt that he not only did not know, but he did not care.
When I came across the article of him opening his first church, I mean, it was like a father's pride, you know. Even though I was in jail, you know, it made me walk around with my chest stuck out.
Over the next few months, Roy and his father began to develop their relationship. 8 months into his prison sentence, the chaplain asked Roy to speak at a chapel service. He asked his father to come. His father refused.
It was something that kept pulling me, kept saying, go, come on. You know, and it's like, I don't know, grabbed my hand, picked me up, and took me.
At the end of the service, the chaplain asked Roy to give an altar call.
Normally when the chaplain would give an altar call, you know, no one would come forward. Most of the inmates were very private people, so any type of public acknowledgement of anything really wasn't the norm. It's something that you just didn't do in front of the other inmates. So I'm doing an altar call, not expecting anyone to respond. This Sunday was different. When I looked up and I seen somebody coming towards the front, and it was my dad. When I saw the tears streaming down his face, I knew that he was giving his life to the Lord.
God made me come to terms with myself. He opened that gate and he let me out. That's the beginning of my freedom.
I hugged my dad and I began to weep. For the first time, I felt a real connection, that our connection was a lot deeper. Going forward, it was an awesome feeling.
A few weeks later, Roy was released from prison early for good behavior. His father was released in 2009, and their relationship is completely restored. Roy has written a book about their journey and what God has done in their lives.
All things do work together for good, and my love for God is stronger now. My commitment to the Lord is stronger, and my life, I couldn't imagine my life any other way now. I thought I was living before, and I think I've only just begun to really live in that abundant life that is promised to believers.
Amazing story. God had to put Roy in jail for him to be reunited with his father, for that hole to be filled up, for that relationship to be restored. He works all things together for our good. He understands the importance of fathers. And for those of us that don't have them, he is willing to fill that role. It's one of the great things, it's one of the amazing things about how God wants to be our Father. Jesus taught us to pray that, our Father who art in heaven. God expressed that he was a father to the children of Israel, that they were his, that David was his son, that Solomon was his son, that we are all his children. One of the oldest inscriptions that we found giving evidence of the Bible, a wonderful archaeologist, his name is Gabriel Barkai. He found a scroll, and in that scroll, it's a silver scroll, was an inscription. And it dates from 600 BC, before the Babylonians took Jerusalem. He found it in Jerusalem. And it's the Aaronic blessing, the blessing that God commanded Moses to tell to Aaron, to say, this is how we are to bless the children of Israel. You find it in Numbers chapter 6. And here it is. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to Aaron and his sons, saying, this is the way you shall bless the children of Israel. Say to them. Now, how many times do you see the word saying and speak in just those 4 lines? Say to them. This is the way. Speak, saying. Lord spoke. So often we as men, we just sort of assume people understand that we love them. And we assume, well, you know, I'm providing for you, aren't I? You know, the old joke, you know, the wife coming to her husband saying, do you still love me? And the response, well, I married you, didn't I? You know, how much do we need to express it, to speak it? And I would encourage you, if you're a father this Father's Day, make sure you start speaking blessing over your family. You know, God's underlined this for us for a reason, to get it through our thick heads, that we need to speak blessing over our children. And he wants to speak blessing over you. Here is his blessing. The Lord bless you and keep you. That's one of the fundamental things that fathers have to do. The Lord bless you and keep you. That is the incredible things that fathers do for their children. The Lord bless you and keep you. If you're a father, turn that around to your children and say, I bless you and I keep you. And the provision for your children is all part of what it means to be a father. That you're going to keep them. You're going to keep them safe. You're going to provide for them. You're going to provide clothing, food, shelter. You're going to make sure they're educated. You're going to see them through life. You're going to keep them. Then the second part, the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Now, how often do you look at your children? You know, when you see your children playing, you know, you ever hear, Daddy, 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 look at me, look at me. And then they want to demonstrate something. It's all about that contact with your face. And God understands that. He will cause his face to shine upon you. And he'll be gracious to you. He won't say, leave me alone, or go away. He'll be gracious. Do that for your children. Look at them. Admire what they do. Be gracious to them. Then the third part, it's again all about the face and the contact. Lift up his countenance upon you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. How often as a father when my children were afraid and they were worried, they were troubled. All it took was me picking them up in my arms, and in that place they found peace. They knew that they were secure. They knew all of that. They had the understanding that Daddy had them, and they were safe, and all their trouble went away. And that's what God wants to do for each one of us. He wants to give us his peace. Then the final part, so they shall put my name on the children of Israel, and I will bless them. And understand how important it is for the father to put his name on his children and to recognize that. One of the greatest curses a father can ever give is to say, you're no child of mine. And one of the greatest blessings, you're my child. You have my name. And that's what God has done for us. He has given us his name. He's marked us as his own. And he says, you're mine. You're my child. I'm going to take care of you. I am going to bless you. This Father's Day, if you're a father, do this. Bless your children. Do it out loud. Do it in their face. And say, I bless you. I'm going to keep you. I'm going to be gracious to you. I'm going to give you peace. You're mine. My name is on you, and I'm going to bless you. We'll be right back with more of the 700 Club after this.
I became a slave to it. It got really, really addictive for me. I say, God, you have to deliver me out of this. Of that woman of God laid her hands on me. My God instantly delivered. I didn't have any more feeling to smoke, to use crack cocaine. I didn't want any of that anymore. And if he could change me, he could change anyone.
Hi, I'm Dr. Joyce Brothers. Those of us who are independent and live alone shouldn't do so without having emergency protection. And for reliability and peace of mind, I recommend Alert USA.
With Alert USA, if you ever need assistance, just press your pendant to be connected to an operator who can summon help to your home 24 hours a day.
I've been giving advice for many years, and I believe Alert USA provides the best emergency support and value for your dollar. Call now for a free brochure.
Welcome back to the 700 Club. Two of the world's richest men are calling on other billionaires to give huge portions of their fortunes to charity. Microsoft's Bill Gates and billionaire investor Warren Buffett want others to give at least half of their wealth to charity. They want American billionaires to pledge to donate the money during their lifetime or through their will. In 2006, Buffett decided to give 99% of his money to charity. That's around $46 billion. Amazing. Gates and Buffett estimate the project could raise $600 billion in charitable giving. Operation Blessing is bringing the gift of mobility to Haitians suffering with disabilities. O.B. is teaming up with a humanitarian aid organization called Free Wheelchair Mission. More than 550 unassembled wheelchairs have been shipped to Port-au-Prince. Volunteers put the chairs together there and deliver them to individual recipients and area hospitals. The wheelchairs are very affordable at only $65 and are easy to ship. They have also been delivered to those in need in 12 other countries. You can find out more about Operation Blessing by going to their website at ob.org. Gordon and Terry will be back with more of the 700 Club right after this.
3 years ago, we got a call. My mother broke her hip getting in her tub. She had been lying there for 2 hours before a neighbor happened to hear her.
I don't think about that day. I think about the day I got my Premier bath. It's made my life so much better.
If you or someone you love has a mobility issue that could lead to a slip in the tub or shower, you owe it to yourself to call Premier Bathrooms, the world-class leader in transforming your bathroom with safe, easy-to-use, easy-entry baths featuring hydrotherapy.
It's a beautiful transformation for your bathroom and for your life.
Call right now to get your free information. It's that easy. Let Premier Bathrooms share over 20 years of trusted expertise and guaranteed results.
Call 888-228-7067.
I'm often asked the question, is investing in gold right for me? In fact, many people think that owning gold is only for the wealthy. But you can own gold with a minimal investment. It's easy to own gold. At Goldline, our clients invest in physical gold, not gold stocks or gold funds. Call Goldline and talk with an account executive who can answer your questions and discuss the available gold products, like our popular European coins or Proof American coins. Your gold is then shipped directly to you, or we will arrange storage for you. Goldline has been helping investors acquire precious metals since 1960, and we work with new clients every day who have decided that it's time to invest in gold. Isn't it time that you consider gold? I invite you to join the thousands of hardworking, satisfied clients who have chosen Goldline to help diversify by investing in gold. Call Goldline now and receive a free investor's kit and the American Advisor newsletter. Our account executives are here 6 days a week to serve you. Give us a call today.
Life can be tough. There are challenges for all of us. Jesus told us to pray for one another, and that's exactly what we want to do. On 700 Club Interactive, we use technology to bring Christians together to pray for each other, meet others just like you, and talk or share with them in real time. Watch God work miracles in people's lives as we interact with viewers through the wonders of today's technology. Join us on the new 700 Club Interactive, weekdays at 9:30 on ABC Family.
Life isn't easy for fishermen in the Philippines, and turning a profit can be a challenge. But for a fisherman without a boat, it's almost impossible.
As long as John can remember, his family has made a living from the sea, but money is so tight that when a day ends without him catching fish, they have little to eat.
Sometimes my children ask me why we had no money to buy rice. As a father, it hurts me that I cannot give them what they need.
Compounding the problem, John had to rent or borrow a boat from his neighbor just to catch fish. During a recent trip, the boat got damaged, and John had to pay for the repairs. That's when he met with some staff members from Operation Blessing, who had come to town with an offer to help.
They prayed for me, and then they asked how they could help me. I told them that I'd been praying for a motorboat.
Operation Blessing gave the family a boat, which now means there's plenty of fish to feed his family and to sell. And John is quick to share his new boat with his neighbors.
The boat is such a blessing to us. We have an income every single day now. I'm finally able to meet my family's needs. Thank you so much, Operation Blessing, for our boat.
The boat is a blessing. The boat means life, and you provided that if you're a 700 Club member. You're doing that for people all around the world, people who find themselves in desperate needs, either because of poverty or because of some event that's happened that's caused a catastrophe. You are there on the spot making a difference in the lives of thousands of people. So we want to say thank you if you're a 700 Club member. And listen, if you're not, this is a great opportunity to join. It's 65 cents a day, $20 a month to become a part of the family of ministries that reaches around the world from here. And we invite you to do that right now. All you have to do is go to your phone and call that toll-free number that's on your screen, 1-800-759-0700. Say, I want to join the 700 Club. They'll get you all set. And when you do join, we want to say thank you by sending you The Secret Kingdom. This is Volume 2, and it's filled with wonderful principles from the Word of God. Pat has found these in the Word of God and then put them together in a teaching so that you can activate them in your life, and it will make a huge difference. So we want you to have this. We think it'll be a blessing to you, and you'll also have the satisfaction of knowing that you're touching and blessing lives around the world. And by the way, you can also go to cbn.com and join us that way. Well, for more information, we want to answer some of your email questions. You ready for that?
I am.
Okay, this is Olga, who says, I get the impression from watching the 700 Club that God often speaks to you. What do you do to make that happen? What can I do to hear his voice clearly?
Olga, all you have to do is ask. And I know that sounds simple. It is. I know the first time I asked for a word of knowledge, it was my sort of introduction to ministry. I was doing street evangelism and door-to-door in a poor section of the city of Manila in the Philippines. And I thought it would be a good idea, since I didn't speak Tagalog, that it might be wonderful if God spoke to me and gave me some information to help the people that we were getting ready to witness to. And so we prayed in the street, Lord, give us words of knowledge today. And then as I walked into the first one, I asked, okay, Lord, I'm here. Do you have a word for this young man? And he was about 17 years old, and this word popped into my brain, education. And I started arguing with God. It was, God, you have no idea what you're talking about here. And, this is a poor section. He doesn't have much hope of education. And what are you talking about? And usually all the time when I argue with God, I lose. And I didn't have anywhere to go but just say and be obedient to what he just told me. And to my absolute amazement, this young man, 17 years old, started weeping when I mentioned the word education. It was a reaction I didn't anticipate. He was the first one in his family to ever get the opportunity to go to college. And the family had run out of money trying to pay for mom's medical care. And so there was no money left over for him to go to college. His dreams were dashed. Well, at that point in time, I knew God wanted to heal mom. And God wanted him to go to college. And God wanted to work that out for him. And it all just came to me in an instant. And so we said, where's mom? Let's pray for her. Well, mom got healed. Both mom and son got saved, and they started going to the local church that we were with. And then people got together when they heard, and his education was provided for. All of that just from a simple word of knowledge. One that I didn't want to deliver. And so just start asking God for that, and ask him to reveal things to you, not for your own, sort of person, but as you try to go out and do good for other people, he'll do that. If you want more information how to hear God's voice, we have a special website, cbn.com. All you have to do is go to the Bring It On Extra. It'll be there. We leave you these words from Psalm 116. I love the Lord because he has heard my voice and my supplications. Therefore, I will call upon him as long as I live. Superbookkids.com. We created this website as a place where kids can learn the Bible in a whole new way.
Kids will love SuperbookKids.com. Their games, the ability to create your own personal Superbook characters. We even have a place for kids to listen to music on Superbook Radio.
Superbook is CBN's animated series that teaches the Bible through the eyes of two friends and their robot sidekick. We're going to tell stories all the way from creation to Christ's return.
The website also teaches kids life lessons. Parents can spend time online with their kids learning about the Bible.
SuperbookKids.com is entirely gospel-centered, and by supporting it, you'll help bring God's Word to children all over the world.
SuperbookKids.com. We're reaching a new generation with the gospel of Jesus Christ. Together, we can give today's kids the truth of the Bible in a fun and exciting way that will change their lives.
Ready on the set? Going to Dr. Robertson in 3, 2...
On December 3rd, 2009, Pat Robertson entered the studio to update his landmark work, The Secret Kingdom, to help people live abundant lives amid today's challenges.
I want to talk to you today about The Secret Kingdom. What is The Secret Kingdom?
The Secret Kingdom Volume 1, available now.